Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Human Dignity panel this morning. We're so grateful to have you all. My name is Megan Rodriguez, and I am a formation director here at the Co-Cathedral and get to participate in a group. We call it the Human Dignity Group that meets once a month and has people from different parishes in town. Many of you are here who participate, and this panel came from that. We gather, and so many of our conversations span all sorts of things, and we realize it all comes back to the human dignity of each person and our call to see Christ in the person in front of us. And so this panel, we invited people who have different stories, different experiences, different ways of encountering the dignity of each person. So we're so grateful to them. I just want to open us with a quote that kind of inspired us for this panel and a little opening prayer, and then I'll hand it off to Julia Ferrero, who will kind of be helping us ask our panelists their questions. And you're stuck with me. Father Bob was up for like 4 hours in the night hearing confessions, because we also have 24 hours of the Lord going on, which is 24 hours of adoration and confession that the priests in our area are so graciously giving us. So he might pop in, but that's why he's, I think, resting right now. So we'll just open knowing that here we are in the presence of God, and ask that the Holy Spirit would guide our conversations this morning. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. And just first for us to reflect on, this is from a woman named Professor Helen Alvire, and she said, "While of course the task of each person will differ according to his or her station in life, all are charged with some basic, crucial responsibilities. These include prayer and personal conversion to the good news about the sacredness of human life. We are further called to maintain hope in the face of the enormous resources available to the proponents of a culture of death. We are called to adopt a lifestyle which clearly communicates the primacy of being over having, one that makes room for the embrace of those who need us, not merely those we choose. Thereafter, whether we are women or men, intellectuals, citizens, physicians, teachers, or women who've suffered from an abortion, we all have specific contributions to make. And Lord, we would just ask that this morning you help us to know how you are calling us to be instruments to protect the sacredness of every life. We ask the Holy Spirit to guide our panelists, to give them the wisdom of speaking whatever it is you want us to hear this morning. And we ask all of this through the intercession of our Mother Mary as we pray together. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I'll invite Julia to come up and get us started. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Megan. All right, so the first question I received today was, in what order are we going to do this? And I thought maybe the closest to me to start, and then, okay. First question, please tell us a little about yourself. So Sister Dawn, if you're okay to start.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I was supposed to come up there or not. Okay, I'll just sit here. Good morning. I am Sister Dawn Notware, and I'm a Rochester Franciscan. For about 25 years, I taught moral theology at a school of theology and ministry in Chicago Catholic Theological Union. And that school is not just an ordinary seminary. It was founded right after the Second Vatican Council, and it was established to include women and to primarily, in the beginning, to serve the religious orders from around the world. And so my classroom was never just U.S. people. I usually had a representation of about 40% of the students are international. So my perspective is pretty big. Anyway, my home was Windham, Minnesota. My mom was a teacher. My father worked for the Veterans Administration. And my maternal grandmother lived with us. I have an older sister, Joan, who has gone to God already, but she was 5 years older than I. and she suffered from schizophrenia. My grandmother was elderly and had severe heart conditions. We took care of her most of the time. And then, I don't know what else I'm supposed to say about myself. I grew up, went to College of St. Teresa, eventually went to Maryknoll School of Theology, where I had the theologians of the day, Gustavo Gutierrez, Rosemary Redford Ruther, Elizabeth Schuster Fiorenza, some of the people that Elizabeth Johnson eventually was a colleague at, let's see, what are some of the other things? I really I worked in the Diocese of Rochester, New York, at the time when HIV/AIDS was just coming out, and Bishop Matthew Clark asked me to help him draft a pastoral letter on that topic. And in doing that, I worked with Dr. Bill Valenti, who is one of the researchers who eventually developed the HIV cocktail. Just a few things like that. So I just am so privileged and to work with the people of God from really so many different ways. So that's kind of part of who I am.
Hi, I'm Celia Kamath, and I am a health services researcher at the clinic. I was intending to be very brief, but they can hear. Can you hear me? Okay. I did my PhD at the University of Minnesota, the Carlson School. And I guess because my husband was working here at the time, I started working at Mayo. And in 2002, we adopted a little girl, Leah. So to some extent, I guess my career took a little bit of a back seat. And I guess that's why I'm on this panel, I'm guessing. So Leah is 23, and I've got an older daughter, Rachel, a really beautiful, talented kid. I guess that's about what I can say. I come from a family of 4 siblings. I've got a twin sister who lives in India, but I've got a couple of siblings who live in Philadelphia, a younger brother and sister. And yeah, that's about what I can say about myself.
Well, the resumes are getting thinner and thinner as we go down the line here. So, Mario, I don't know what you've got to say, but well, I'm Barry Bruss. I've lived here it'll be 30 years in July. I am a pharmacist, and I grew up in Cambridge, Minnesota, in east central Minnesota, so it's an hour north of Minneapolis and an hour east of St. Cloud. I like to joke it's the non-Catholic end of the St. Cloud Diocese. Where I grew up was the last county in the state of Minnesota to get a resident priest. It's a very, very non-Catholic area. And if you contrast that with, if you know where St. Cloud is, Stearns County is probably one of the most Catholic counties in the United States. So, met my wife Paula at South Dakota State University. We have 4 children who are all adults now, 4 adult children. And we have our first grandchild on the way, but due June 1st. I know where Wyndham is. I've been to Wyndham. You know the joke? Wyndham's wild, but the next town's wilder? Yeah, okay. So that's one of my favorites. So, and you set it up, I had to go for it. So, but I joked with Megan in our email exchanges. I'm not quite sure why I'm here, but I'll let the Holy Spirit guide me. So,
all right. I'm Mario Rodriguez. I grew up in Apple Valley. What brought me here from Apple Valley is Lauren right here. We had 3 kids, so when our first kid was born, we moved to Rochester because it was closer to her family. So Yeah, I work in customer service, and that's taught me a lot about human dignity. So at first, I mean, I was really reserved, kind of like introverted. And then I had a great manager who really invested in my development. And of course, Lauren absolutely was a great support to me. And as I moved among the ranks, it's really helped me connect with customers, and instead of just kind of like being an order taker, doing what they ask for and getting them out of the door quickly, really taking time to slow down and talk to them. And this guy over here, Tommy, he's been a great support as well and opened my eyes to the church, which I just got my 3 boys baptized. And yeah, it's been quite a trip. Yeah.
Everybody knows Tommy.
That's a good thing, I think.
Thank you. All right, question 2. What are experiences and human relationships in your life that have taught you about the dignity of each human person? And then another way to think of this question is, how have you experienced being the hands and feet of Jesus?
Probably the most influential in my life was my sister. As I mentioned earlier, when she was about 20 years old, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And to know her growing up we were probably, personality-wise, polemically opposite. She was quiet, very conscious of her looks, and she did beautiful embroidery. She could sit down at the piano even at an early age. If she saw a piece of music, she'd play it once, and after that she'd throw away the score. It was right here. And she wanted to follow my mom in being a teacher, so she started in college with doing elementary education kind of major, and basically it was up and down one semester to the other, and so eventually came back and to Wyndham and did waitressing, and this became a pattern throughout her life. And eventually, just to shorten the story a bit, she met a guy and ended up in Nebraska, and he had his own troubles, and eventually I had finished my doctorate, and I was teaching at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I got a call one morning saying that, and it was from a social worker, that she had died of a heart attack. So all of that along the years, her personality was one where basically I became the lead, in whatever we did. But I would always try to do things that would let her shine. And I think that probably was the biggest lesson in all of this that I ever had. And periodically, I do miss her. But I also know that her suffering is gone at this point.
Okay, so I guess the question is, it's about the being the hands and feet of Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. How do I put this? I guess Leah has helped in a way, helping you more directly being the hands and feet because of the need to care for her. But I think what I've experienced over the time we've had her is being exposed to the lives of her caregivers, her teachers, other parents who've had children with special needs. And I just realized that there was a whole ecosystem caring for vulnerable people in this town, which was incredibly beautiful. And I'd say, I mean, besides my own experience, you see that there are several others in town doing this work. And probably the most, you don't, they're hidden. You don't see them, you don't hear about them. You hear about all the important work being done at Mayo and all these other places, but these are the folk actually carrying the burden of a lot of people in this town who would just be forgotten otherwise.
I don't have good answers to follow up my my co-panelists, but as a pharmacist, excuse me, one of the jokes I frequently make is I'm a pharmacist, I don't touch people at the hospital. But what I do witness is amazing caring from the doctors and the nurses that I work with who exhibit tremendous compassion for their patients. And we've got a lot of patients that are here for a very long time, and there's a thing called compassion fatigue that is really, really, it's a terrible thing to encounter, but the fact that it doesn't happen more never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even compare it to the feet of Jesus, but what I can say is the relationships that taught me more about the dignity of each human person. So when I first started as a banker, kind of watching people talk to the customers that came in, and especially Tommy there, I'll put you on the spot. We worked at the downtown branch, so it was like right under the Word on Fire, and he would say things to customers that would kind of like make them light up, and that really showed me that there's more to this job than just their finances. And being at the downtown branch, we got a lot of like the research fellows and hearing their stories from all over the world and kind of getting their perspective really broadened my own perspective. And when you talk to them, that's kind of like giving them their dignity, right? You're not treating them as just a number, you're treating them as a person, a human. And yeah, kind of implementing that in my own work. Yeah, and now that I'm a leader in the branch at a different location, kind of trying to share that next level of experience to the bankers under me. It's a difficult job. Just asking them, how's your day going? What do you plan on doing next? And it's amazing the conversations that come out of just those two questions. And yeah, it's really, it impacts like our surveys, but in reality it impacts the customer and their banking relationship. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay, this one is, I would say, a deeper question. Did you ever resist the idea that each human has been given full human dignity by our Creator? So that's the main question. It's kind of long, what might be in front of you. And then, what made you look deeper to keep striving toward the truth? How did you finally come to know and accept that each human has been given full human dignity by our Creator?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I spent some time with that because I just think, in terms of really thinking that way or knowing that way. It was so foreign in our household growing up that I guess I suppose if I was really teed off at somebody at some point, that might have been the moment. But I just was so immersed. My parents, my grandmother, my experience with my sister. So I'm not trying to say I'm not a sinner, but I am saying that it never lasted very long. And I think that's part of why I am so driven even in my teaching. And I had a mentor in graduate school, actually my Dr. Father Daniel McGuire. He had a saying, the foundational moral experience is reverence for the human person and their environment. And that's my mantra, But yeah, I mean, I think it's only human that at times we see the more negative, and I've certainly done that. But it's like my gears just don't want to stay in that level. I have to say I've been blessed with that kind of a resistance to it. And I think I have to go back to my parents and my sister and others who loved me so much that I couldn't not love, So that's probably my best answer.
I'm frankly a little confused with this question because I don't know if I ever resisted the idea that each human has been given full human dignity. It's, I guess I just grew up with, sorry? Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess my answer is a resounding no to that. Especially given, if you meet Leah, you'll realize why. So, okay. Yeah. So Leah was she. We go through this whole big experience in India where you can only get them out of the orphanage when they're 3 months old. So Gerard, her dad, and her Uncle Patrick, who some of you know, who Megan knows, I think, they were taught by this wonderful lady who actually handpicked Leah because she looked a lot like Rachel. And when we took her home, we realized she couldn't see. And we thought it was just retinopathy of prematurity, but it turned out to be considerable brain damage. And so I guess she felt, besides, the hoops you go through bringing a child like that back to the U.S. through the embassy, we had, I don't think that was that much of a problem, but she told us, oh, you can return her. Like she was a toy from Walmart. And yeah, I know I can understand her emotions when she was telling her this, because she didn't expect this as well. But yeah, she turned out to be a lot of work, but quite a gift. It's difficult to describe unless you live with someone like her.
I don't have a follow-up for that. So but I'd like to say no. I hope I'm being honest, but I probably had my moments, unfortunately.
So I haven't necessarily resisted the idea that everyone deserves respect and dignity, but some customers make it hard. They come in angry, they're upset with a company policy or something that we have to kind of decline. But instead of reciprocating that anger, that disrespect, kind of just absorbing it and kind of turning the other cheek, definitely makes an impact. Sometimes they'll be very upset, and it's just kind of like leveling with them and letting them know, like, hey, I'm on your side. I agree that I wish I could do more for you, but here's what I can do, and kind of making a different way. Instead of just being like, okay, they're not giving me respect, you can get out, It's hard. It's easier to say than to do, but yeah, you just gotta serve with a smile.
Thank you. What are 3 words that capture your experience learning about human dignity? So just 3 words.
Well, I wrote down love whole person.
I wrote down awareness, recognizing, just building up on the word awareness, recognizing their inherent worth and seeing, not overlooking the dignity of the person. Empathy, working on the ability to understand and feel the humanity of another person. It kind of requires a little bit of, I know it's a much bandied word, but it requires a bit of humility and respect, taking responsibility and making a commitment to treat others in ways that honor their dignity. So it's awareness, empathy, and respect.
Can I do 4? You could make it 3, but it's not about you.
I'll just go with a 3-word phrase: gift from God.
Thank you. Okay. And then thinking about kind of all your realms of life, like in work, but also as a parent, as a spouse, as a volunteer, maybe as a parishioner. So maybe pulling from a spot in your life you haven't pulled from. What do you wish more people knew about those you've served who may be marginalized, misunderstood, or even dehumanized by others? Can you give a concrete example of this message, like in your personal life?
I'm not sure that I. Which question did you go? Oh, 5. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I see it now because I was trying to put together another question here. And I thought you were on. Okay. Yeah. I have a phrase that I was kind of taught at home, and I think it still resonates with me. It's there for the grace of God go I. It's like, none of us know. We don't choose where we're born. We don't choose where we end up living so much or anything like that, or who surrounds us. But there is some real kind of foundational way that I think Jesus taught us how to live, and I try to follow that. So.
So this was what you wish more people knew about those you served. Where Leah's concerned, it's her beauty, her innocence, and her value. I mean, and when I say value, I think these kids or these human beings, I mean, we've realized this with just living with her, that she's a little angel walking on earth, because she never, I don't think she sins, basically. She's just pure innocence. She brings out the best in human beings, but she's got this capacity to express so much gratitude for every little thing you do for her. I mean, I guess we're lucky because some kids with special needs have a lot of behavioral problems, and it makes it tough. that's why I say she's a gift. She does not have that. And so it makes it easier for us. We just enjoy the nicer parts. Her beautiful nature. She's a lot of work. There's no two ways about it, and we've had to, I've had to make some pretty big compromises. But if you ask me at the end of the day, it was well worth it. This is, I'd say, this probably has brought me more value to my life than maybe a career. So, yeah, so that's.
Everybody has a story, and I think we live in a terribly incurious age. So I would encourage you all to, next time you meet someone new that you don't know, whether it's someone who appears to have it all together or someone who doesn't, is after introduction, say, tell me your story, and just see what happens.
Yeah, being a young parent, I definitely feel the misunderstood part a lot. But yeah, I mean, without the boys, I don't know what to do with myself in my free time. So although some people would say, that seems like a lot of work, it's very rewarding work as well.
Okay. The sixth question. Have any resources such as media, songs, books, church documents, Bible verses, it goes on, homilies, podcasts, speeches, helped you to more fully understand the gift of human dignity in the church's teachings in this area? The way I think of this question is, like, if I'm talking really excitedly to a friend, what do I recommend?
Well, I have to say that there's a good theologian that he writes in an academic setting, but what he has to say is just for ordinary folk like me and you. And this man he was a professor at the Louvain in Europe, and he came up with 8 essential dimensions of the human person. And I think it fits pretty much what we've been saying all along, except that he has a list. And I'm just going to read them real quick, and I'm not, it's going to sound worse than what it really is. This first one is, the human person is a subject, not an object. I think that one's pretty clear, The human person is a subject in he uses the fancy term corporality, which simply means our physical body is important as well as our whole, mind and affect, our emotions. And because we have a material body, we can't take that away. So we have to deal with what is physically present around us. And sometimes, that's pollution. Sometimes it's just a beautiful lake or something like that. But either way, somehow we're connected to that and we're responsible. He says we're essentially directed toward one another. In other words, we don't live in isolation, right? And then not only because of our openness to one another, we are social beings, but also because we need to live in social groups. Have you ever tried to live only by yourself for a long, long time? Be like a hermit, It's pretty tough. And then we're historical beings. We got a past and we got a future. And someplace in the middle is now. So that affects how we think about what our relationships are like, huh? Okay. And then all human beings are fundamentally, this is my favorite, all human persons are fundamentally equal, but at the same time, each is an originality, a unique subject. Think about that. Okay? And then the human persons are fundamentally directed toward God. It is the task of moral theology to explain how, according to our Christian revelation, our relation to God affects all our doings.
So I actually did a little bit of homework on this in terms of resources. I actually feel sorry that this podcast has been seized with public radio on Krista Tippett. I don't know if you used to listen to her. Yeah. She really brings out the value of human dignity. I mean, if you can get her on, I think you can get her on Apple Podcast. She's really worth listening to.
Absolutely.
And then I had a couple of others as well. Philosophy Bites. Yeah, but I think Krista Tippett will give you enough to keep you occupied for a while. She's amazing. Yeah, if anyone has any influence with public radio, I'm looking at you, Laura. No, but you're PBS, right? Yeah, they should bring that on. You know, it's sad that funding has deteriorated. Well, and there's lots of scriptures too, I guess. I just did a little. Human dignity begins with being created in God's image. Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in His own image. Every person has great value. How we treat others reflects their dignity. This Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did to one of the least of these brothers and sisters, you did for me. And Luke 10:33-34. Remember the Samaritan story about taking pity and bandaging his wounds. Then you have the equal dignity of all people. Galatians 3:28. There's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And Acts 10:34. God shows no partiality. So everyone, irrespective of where they come from, the color of their skin, whether they're migrant or non-migrant, they're all equal in God's image. And that's the world we actually live in, but our reality is different right now. And the command to love others. Love your neighbors, yourself. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. So, yeah, the Bible is full of these verses, and that's why we're here. We're Catholic, right? We need to live that out. Yeah, and just on a personal level, sometimes you struggle with situations, and this is what you go back to the Bible. I'm lucky enough that I've been part of three friends who've been. Our friendship lasts about 30 years. That's how long I've lived in this town, and I think it's very grounded in the Bible, in Bible studies. They are Lutheran. One's Lutheran and one is, they're both Lutheran actually. So we have a Bible study group that I think has been a very valuable addition to my Saturday mornings. This has gone on with different people coming in, different people coming out. But I think that's been a very valuable part of helping everyone in that group cope with whatever life gives them. And it just reframes everything.
Well, those of you who know me know that I'm a movie fanatic, and references to media here, I'm racking my brain listening to the ladies speak here. And by the way, they have extensive notes in their margins. We have none. So there's a lesson there. And it finally came to me. If anyone remembers, it's one of my favorite films. It's called The Straight Story, and it's based on a true story of a man in northwest Iowa who couldn't drive, so he drove his lawnmower across Iowa 200 some miles to meet his estranged brother who had had a stroke. They hadn't spoken in years, and his story, and then when he gets to his brother's house in Wisconsin, and then the people he meets along the way, and it's beautifully shot. If you're into film and directing and camera angles and cinematography, it is just spectacular. Driving across Iowa during the harvest and then he meets the ragbride bicyclists going, and it's just spectacular. But there's a lot of lessons in that film about people and human dignity.
I feel like the low-hanging fruit here is Bishop Barron's Twitter account. Yeah. And of course the Gospels. Yeah. And also Jordan Peterson. I don't agree with all his views, but he does have a good little speech on human dignity that I watched last night.
Thank you. Why does every human matter to you?
Well, it's pretty simple. They mattered to Jesus.
Right. It's. I guess it's part of what I just talked about before. There's smatterings all over the Bible about why human beings are important, and they are made in the image of God.
Ditto.
Everybody matters to me because they all got something to teach you. Whether it's something that you're open to at first, whether it's something that causes you pain, whether it's something that makes you happy. Everybody's got a lesson to teach you.
Okay. This is looking at maybe friends and family, kind of outward. If someone recognized their starting place of recognizing the human dignity of all humans is to pray for a desire to love and serve all humans and fully respect each human's dignity, what could that prayer look like? That's a long question, so if it doesn't make sense, I can reword it. Do you have any encouragement to guide them in prayer? So if somebody is really in this starting place of, I'm not sure I agree with human dignity in all humans, and I want to pray for a desire for that, what would your encouragement look like?
I would just say ask as you would any other person. I think that's where I think the humanity of Jesus really makes a difference. If you have a sense of who he was and what his attitudes were, and I think there's any number of situations in the New Testament and then back into the Jewish heritage too, where there are many names for God. And why? Because God has intervened in people's lives or cares for us in so many different and really all situations. So however you would think about talking to somebody else, think about your best friend, chat away.
I'm going to actually suggest something different. I don't know if anyone's watched the series The Chosen. You have? Okay. I suggest they start with that. And that would probably give them some motivation. Yeah, I've just gone through one season, that's it.
Well, Jesus teaches us to love our enemies. So I think one thing we can do is obviously pray for our enemies, but even it's very, very difficult to be angry at someone or hate someone that you pray for. So that's a good place to start.
So I would start with how would you feel if you were them? if you were the marginalized, you know.
Okay. This next one, we have 3 pretty long texts. So I would say maybe, so the question is, what comes to mind, or do you have any points of reflection to offer for each of the following texts on the theme of human dignity? Maybe should I have you read which one you choose? Would that be okay? Or do you want me to read one and we just go off of one? We can kind of choose that. Whatever. Okay, I'll just read A. I don't want to just sit here. It'll be a lot. So I'll read A, and then if anyone doesn't choose A, just read it. So this is in the Gospel of Life, and it's Great Exemplar by Professor Helen Alvarez. This is a quote. While of course the task of each person will differ according to his or her station in life, all are changed with some basic crucial responsibilities. These include prayer and personal conversion to the good news about the sacredness of human life. We are further called to maintain hope in the face of the enormous resources available to proponents of a culture of death. We are called to adopt a lifestyle which clearly communicates the primacy of being over having, one that makes room for the embrace of those who need us, not merely those we choose. Thereafter, whether we are women or men, intellectuals, citizens, physicians, teachers, or women who've suffered from an abortion, we have specific contributions to make.
Yeah, that is a lot. I just, when I read that, the first thing I think is, while that is full of many things that suggest we could get into a real deep place of anxiety or worry, my first comment for myself here is that God is greater than all of that, and that I think we need to remember that one of the most outstanding characteristics of God is merciful, and to our ability, best ability and capacity of acting in any one situation, that's what God expects of us. And so in looking at the whatever the situation is, there's really 3 things that we have to look at. What are the options for action? What is our intention? Why are we even thinking about this? And then what are the circumstances? And all 3 of those things, to some extent, will either open up opportunities or set limits for what we can or cannot do, and our own abilities, And so sometimes it's a matter of, we can't cure someone in a situation of illness or state of being. So what do we do to limit pain or suffering, or to extend life in a way that has some kind of a quality? And then to make whatever we do a personal, relational kind of experience to the extent we're able. And that there is not only moral principles and laws, but there's also the spirit of personalism, of being personal. If you look at the healing stories in the scriptures, one of the first things that Jesus often, or almost always did, is to ask the person, what would you like me to do for you? And that didn't come out of a textbook, or that didn't come out of a law. That came out of probably what I would call the heart of Jesus. And so I think that is where I would go with thinking about that question.
I don't know how much I can speak to this question, except to say, yeah, there's life at conception and there's life after birth. And to some extent, I guess I've been, involved in life after birth of a child who is profoundly disabled. She can't see, she can't talk, she's just as vulnerable as they get. What are we doing for those we're trying to influence to prevent an abortion? Are we helping them with what life will be after birth? Is everything we do focused on that, or are we just focusing on preventing an abortion? I think that's something that I grapple with the Catholic Church and its teachings. There has to be as much emphasis on life after birth as in the womb.
Excuse me. The Catholic Church understands the human condition in all its different facets, and so ultimately what the church is, obviously the salvation of souls is the primary law of the church, but yet in our earthly lives, human flourishing is the church's primary concern, and the church has the teachings and the resources for human flourishing. And that's the hope that I have, that we can get that message out to people, that the church has something for everyone, because we are all destined to be Catholics and get to heaven through the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I would just what captured my attention is the task of each person will differ according to his or her station in life. So like, what are my crucial responsibilities in this moment, this day? How can I serve God? Yeah.
One thing I didn't say, and I think it's pretty much what you just said, but I've got one of my students came up with this: I'm doing the best I can with what I've got right now.
Thank you to each of you. At this time, we're done with our formal questions, but I really wanted to open up the couple of minutes we have to questions from the audience. So.
Yeah, I did. So yeah, that was when I worked at the downtown branch. I was going on my lunch break, walked out of the doors and the sun was shining, and then I saw you guys standing over there. And then, yeah, it captured my attention because that was when I first started on my Jesus trip. Tommy pushed me down that path, but just kind of going to them and talking to them about my situation going on. And they prayed for me, and they gave me like a miraculous medal, or miracle medal. Miraculous medal, yeah, yep. And I wore it for probably about 2 months, and yeah, it worked. So yeah, and then yeah.
First off, thank you for being here and sharing your stories and your perspectives. My question is, how would you approach a person who maybe doesn't see their own dignity? So maybe someone who is like depressed or suicidal and is willing to maybe take their own life, or maybe someone who, like, for example, dresses in a way that they like objectify their own body. So people that don't see the dignity that they have, how would you approach that and try to help them see their own dignity?
Well, I guess I'm anyone. Oh boy, yeah. I guess, again, it would be essential to treat them as a respected, dignified human being. However, you can do that in the time frame that you've got. If it's 5 minutes, make eye contact, talk in a voice that is caring, compassionate. However, all of those different ways that I think you're good at caring. It's really difficult to assess anyone's life in one encounter, and I think that that's part of why maybe just as a normal way of being, we do that kind of thing, and to the extent that you have time to just start with a casual conversation and ask caring kinds of questions, where are you from? How do you, how's your day going? Something, if I think it has a lot to do with, stance, body posture, tone of voice, all of those things that, I guess, how would I want to be treated? Might be part of the answer there.
I guess this issue of to each person according to his or her ability to be able to help someone like this. I mean, just speaking to your specific issue, I think professional help is needed, and the resources to actually enable a person like who you described to be to access that seems to be dwindling in this environment we live in. So I think that's an area that we could also help with, creating awareness of the policies of our health systems, of our government, to be able to help the vulnerable, it's kind of it's a trite saying, but what can we as a group do on a policy level to enable these things to happen for those who need it, and then to reach out to them, as you say, on a personal level, to be able to make use of those resources. As you know, mental health resources are just absolutely at an all-time low right now, but there are ways in which, as part of my research, there was even we were actually applying for the Speakery grant, which again, due to different things, didn't really go through. I mean, these were politics at the school level, the public school level. It was mental health in schools were at an all-time low. So one of our ideas was to create opportunities for paraprofessionals to be able to fill that gap. So it was RCTC students who could do some counseling to help to meet that gap. But the bureaucracy at the school level prevented us from even going through with this thing. Picori was very interested. This grant went through the first level, but it was the operational aspects of no, we don't want to get involved in. This is more work for us. This is so that's what I mean. I mean, people need to understand what the real need is, and maybe stick their neck out a little bit and be able to help on different levels, on different ways. But it takes a thinking person to be able to do that, rather than.
And as I referenced earlier, it also takes a curious person. So everything is based on friendship, whether it's simple helping someone in need or helping someone who doesn't see his or her dignity or feel his or her dignity, be able to see that. Everything starts with friendship, because you have to earn the right to be heard, whether it's just in simple friendship or in broader, bigger evangelization type picture. But again, get over, be a curious person, and to the extent that you're able, reach out to the people that are not feeling it. And sometimes I'm a big believer in interacting with people. You might be the person that that person needs, and vice versa. That you encounter people every day in your life that you know, if you look back, say 20, 30 years ago, and think, I'm so glad I have this person in my life. You know, obviously spouse, children, things like that, but friendship too. So, and you think, how did we meet? Wow, what a chance encounter. So, always be on the lookout for those types of situations. And it might not go that far, but it might just be a simple interaction, but that interaction might have really brightened up someone's day.
Yeah, he kind of stole all the words out of my mouth, but yeah, I would definitely say, you know, talking to them on a personal level. What about that makes you happy? What is missing in their life? And they might not know those things at the time, but having that personal conversation with them, relating to them, and kind of trying to fill the gap. And I said Tommy pushed me down this path. That was wrong. He was really just like living the Gospels, and that inspired me. So it wasn't a push. It was more like a lure. But
To bounce off your question about people in a mental health crisis, Barry and I were in Mankato, I think it was this year, 2 years ago, and the keynote speaker was Monsignor Shea, who's the president of the University of Mary. Fabulous speaker. And to summarize, and he hit it on the head, going back to why do we have this mental health crisis, the correct response to our society today is anxiety and depression. Our young people are facing a world that has collapsed. And so my question for the panel is, I know in my head, okay, how could we address, why do we have this need? What can we do to rebuild the things that have fallen apart in society? And I'm just thinking in my own life. There used to be real ways to meet people, and now everybody's with a screen. There used to be real ways to be part of your community, and now everything's virtual. So my question for the panel is, how do we rebuild a culture of life that mitigates the need for mental health services? Why are people seeking abortions? Why do people want to end their lives early? That's my question.
Just for fun, let's start here.
yeah, at first I was going to say social media, but then you kind of touched on the technology piece. So yeah, in a world where we all feel more connected through social media, through technology, virtual, being able to FaceTime, call them up, it kind of makes you think that there's no need to do a home visit, to pop by, to knock on the door. So it'd be hard to convince everyone to go back to flip phones, but that would be my recommendation. Maybe turning the phone off every once in a while, going and making a personal appearance.
That's my wife. Yeah, we've talked about this extensively. I'll get you two go, and then I'll come back. Okay.
I'm just trying to think. Well, yeah, I guess part of it is the isolation caused by partly social media. And, you know, I go back and forth to India because I have a 92-year-old mom that I try to spend as much time with. And I guess part of that society is becoming that way too, but just trying to fall back on my memories of growing up there. And what also remains a little bit still in India is like a true sense of curiosity and caring about neighbors. I find, you know, I live on a street where my neighbor just, you know, I'd left to India. When I came back, they had moved into assisted living, and I didn't even know what was going on. I was truly depressed that I hadn't stopped by. I didn't know that they were that ill, and yeah, I'm caught in my own little circuit of things, but I guess it starts that way, just getting to know your neighbors. There are needs in every home that can be mitigated a little bit by just talking to, and I'm guilty of it as much because we're so busy. That's I think, part of my story at least, and I think it's reflected in the lives of so many others. You're working, you're looking after your kids, you've got all the administrative paperwork you've got to deal with, you've got things to do, but we don't make time to, I'm saying besides the phones and stuff, to actually prioritize social connections. And there's also an element of we versus they. And I have to be frank, I feel it too sometimes in this environment. There's, in this current political environment, there is a we versus they that happens, which is a reality. And I think we need to make an extra effort. And I'm really proud of Minneapolis for doing what it does. But maybe we need to do a little more of it in Rochester as well. So.
Yeah, I don't have any magic wand or anything, but I do think that I do know of families where, there are some rules in the house that get followed, and the intention is, we don't bring phones to the table, we don't, we do these kinds of things. Homework is done so that we have Sunday totally free and we do something as a family. I mean, I think some of that is still possible. I can't speak to that. My own community, we have, the days when we don't go to work and we go do something else together, and it takes sometimes even to plan out a family meeting. I know we do it in groups, and we say, here are some questions, and it's stuff that we don't necessarily ask in the one-on-one meeting, but it's something that takes us a little bit deeper. Or we might look at what just happened this last week, and is there anything that, if it's something that's more positive, well, how do we, communicate with those people? What was the headline in the newspaper? Do we write a letter and say, geez, we're really glad to hear that you're working on this, or, here's some ideas if something really went wrong. And I think that that's part of, our social dimension of who we are. And I know in my own family and growing up, my parents, small town, but nonetheless, I think it can be scaled up or scaled back, if there was something that took place in town, you talk about it. And, that I can't talk too much about family life because I don't live it quite that way, so. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say, going back to those three words, awareness, empathy, and respect and responsibility. I think we do need to practice that in our own lives. Just be aware of what's going on. I think just that, reaching out to people who you feel maybe slightly off their kilter in some way, empathizing with them, and taking some responsibility to find some solution for whatever they're doing and whatever way is possible. You can't move heaven and earth for them, but you can do small things.
Okay, one more.
So in Catholic social teaching, the beginning of that is human dignity. And the seventh principle is care for creation. And how do you see those two related? The beauty of creation and the dignity of human beings?
Yeah, I wrote a couple books on that. Let's see. Well, I think it's the basic, just go outside. I think 90% of our lives sometimes is just inside four walls, and we don't even see it, and we don't have You probably have to go back to 6th or 8th grade science to remember, how does the plant and animal life affect us, So part of it, is just to realize that is, part of who we are, is to be, we're an animal, and we have to relate to the other animals and plants. But it is, I think, Rochester, our awareness of all the different ways the environment helps or hinders our health, it's very real. And I remember working with some of my students who, come from these places where there's everything is so polluted. It's like to come to Chicago, which is very polluted, was a real relief. So I think it's a real need to intentionally put ourselves out there. Go to a park, go to a lake. Minnesota has 10,000 of them supposedly. So I think to really, I think, bring that more into our Christian life. Look at the life and ministry of Jesus. He was outside talking about birds and mountains and hills and things like that, in the sky. Any number of the parables. He's looking at the created world. So I think to bring that into our spirituality is certainly a part of that I think we can all do, even in our prayer life. So maybe that's helpful.
I didn't say it lightly when I said Leah was a gift. She speaks to what you were saying. She's, you realize the incredible dignity in a kid like that. But if that hadn't happened, I'd be grappling a little bit with this question. But for us, that was a gift. So in terms of what we can do, I guess, just make some time for someone you feel is not feeling in that space of human dignity, and I'm sure the answer will come to you if you really pray about it and want to help.
I apologize. Could you restate the question? So, it kind of goes hand in hand with, if we can respect each other, why not respect the environment? And there's plenty of stuff you can learn from nature. So, like technology, like a high-speed rail trains are based on like the aerodynamics of like birds and stuff. So if there's stuff that we can learn from the environment in that regard, there's plenty of stuff for us to learn in our personal lives and human lives as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for just sharing your witnesses and experiences and stories. That's just a big takeaway for me today. And as a mother of 5, I just love your response, so many of you, that this has just been part of your whole life, seeing the dignity of other people and feeling called to love the person in front of you, which is really hopeful when sometimes in the environment that my kids are in, or feeling a little bit like this culture of death, a good reminder of the good and holy work that starts at home and starts with me, and leads perfectly into, there are some resources over there. Feel free to grab some for yourself or extras to maybe hand to a friend. I'd love for someday this panel to invite people who maybe